Hey everybody, welcome to the final episode of the Golden Bolt for 2016. I figured it's been a hell of a long year and there have been a hell of a lot of excellent games, so let's count down my top 10 games of this year. Song of the Deep is on this list for its atmosphere alone. If you're not familiar, it's a smaller game made by Insomniac games, who we're gonna see on this list again. The game focuses on a young girl named Marin, whose father has been lost at sea. Determined to find him, she takes her makeshift submarine and dives down into the ocean to find out what happened to him. The ocean is a horrifying thing. The deep, dark emptiness is something I would never in a million years want to experience. And yet, Song of the Deep drew me in. The unique narrative that takes heavy parts from Irish folklore and this Metroidvania style really worked to make me appreciate the depths below. Plus, writer Brian Hastings designed Marin as a younger video game character, making her narrative arc focus more on emotional strength rather than the usual video game traits such as physical beauty. And he did this all so that his daughter could have a female lead to look up to, which is a heartwarming touch. He described the game as a passion project, and this passion shows. The game is gorgeous, the soundtrack is unique, and again, it made me appreciate the ocean. That's an impressive feat. This wasn't a game I expected to buy. I'm a big Zelda fan, but I have very little interest in the Warriors series, let alone a Warriors game on a system as weak as the 3DS. Even knowing that I have a new 3DS, I figured I'd be better off waiting until the Switch version of this game. And then it went on sale, and I impulse bought it. And it's not bad. The Warrior style isn't for me, but the game runs surprisingly well on the new 3DS, with very little pop-in when it comes to your enemies, and almost nothing when it comes to frame drops. It's a solid little time sink and probably nothing more, but I can admit I had more fun with it than I thought I would. With like 10 million hours of content, it's not a game I would ever expect to complete though. Let me preface this by saying I'm not a huge Team Ico guy. I liked what I played of Ico, but Shadow of the Colossus just isn't my cup of tea. I always end up putting it down about 4 battles in. However, something about The Last Guardian captured me by the previews. Maybe it's the fact that the game has been in development for a decade and I just had to see how it turned out. Maybe it's the fact that I like animals and I wanted to see how dynamic Trico really is. I don't know really, but the fact of the matter is I picked it up and I got immersed. At the time that this video publishes, I'm admittedly probably not done with it yet, so the game still has time to sour on its premise for me, but even though I know it's going to be a little bit irritating later, I love how Trico feels like a real animal. Yes, him not listening may be a problem to some, but to me that's part of the experience. Life doesn't always work the way you want it to, and if you've ever had a pet, you know that pets certainly don't always listen. To me, that makes Trico a better character. Getting him to cooperate is part of the fun, and it'll certainly help me bond with him the more the game goes on. Plus, it's pretty glitchy, so that's always fun. Whoa, hey, psst. Scroll up, no angry comments, eyes right here, come on. Paper Mario Color Splash is not the 1,000-year door, I know that. But it's not Sticker Star either. It follows a similar formula, but to me they fixed most of the problems that Sticker Star had. The battles feel a bit more dynamic, and in some way they feel like they actually benefit you when you win. Exploring levels isn't obtuse, and there's actually some semblance of story and characterization here. This game adds little miniature narratives that still fit the Sticker Star level formula while expanding our potential storylines, and making many clusters of levels feel like they're almost chapters in the old Paper Mario games. Most importantly though, this game is funny. Not just witty, make me smile humor, actual laugh out loud humor, and a ton of it at that. I haven't laughed at a game this much in a long time. Yes, it may be built on a crappy foundation, but so is the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and we don't all get mad every time we think about that, do we? If the series continues moving in this direction and improving, I can live with it, even if I know I'd prefer the classic Paper Mario RPG style to return. The first mainline Pokemon game I picked up since Heart Gold, Sun is an odd beast to me. Or, should I say, an odd Ultra Beast. I have a ton of issues with this game, especially with the first quarter of the adventure and the very, very weak post-game, but the game continued to get more and more fun as the story progressed. What started as one of the worst introductions in a Pokemon game ever, in my opinion, eventually fell by the wayside as I got more invested in the characters they were building up, only for a shallow payoff. but I still had fun and I still logged 30 hours into the game in like a week, so that's gotta be a good sign no matter what. I had a ton to say about Pokemon Sun and Moon, but I did so in 2 longer discussion videos with my buddy Richard. If you want to know more about my opinion of those games, you can check it out there. Another game that was in and out of development for a decade, and it only came out a week before The Last Guardian. And both games turned out pretty damn good, all things considered. Just like The Last Guardian, I admittedly haven't finished Final Fantasy XV at the time of this recording. However, I already know I've been sucked into the world, and I already know I appreciate what the narrative is trying to provide. Barring some horrendous Shyamalan plot twist, this game is safely going to end up right around number 5 on this list, because everything I experienced has felt magical to me. Not perfect, and certainly not in the way I expected to feel when playing a Final Fantasy game, but magical nevertheless. There are so many little innovations to the series, as is usual for a new mainline game, I know, but the narrative feels unique and, in a way, epic. The modernized world is inviting rather than a turnoff to me, and the gameplay is pretty damn fun. I like the main cast, and their development together feels real and natural. This is the sole exception I made to this list, the only remastered, remade, or ported game here, because this game's impact on me has to be told. Like pretty much everybody else on the planet, I don't own a Vita. But one of the Vita games I was dying to play was Gravity Rush. And when I finally got the chance, Gravity Rush Remastered blew me away. There are very few recent games I can say captured me in a state of pure bliss like this game did. The world feels so unique, and if the world is unique, the mechanics are one of a kind. Being able to shoot cat and other people or objects through the air by manipulating gravity itself is amazingly fun, and pretty quickly I was blasting through the air and exploring the distorted Japanese-French hybrid city of Hexville with ease. Cat is such a unique protagonist in that she's kind of a ditz, but that makes her even more charming as the game goes on and we see her develop bit by bit. And the music is just stunning. The game wasn't without its flaws, the combat is a bit on the basic side sometimes, and the story goes all over the place about 2/3 in, but that didn't stop Gravity Rush from becoming one of the most purely enjoyable experiences I've had in gaming in a long time. Come on, you knew it was gonna be here. The anniversary game we won't get in 2017 because of Spider-Man of all things, Ratchet & Clank on PS4 is a phenomenal game for veterans and newcomers alike. The story isn't nearly as phenomenal as the game itself, even when the movie is taken into account to patch up some of the issues, but that doesn't stop it from being one hell of a good time. The game is absolutely gorgeous, right now one of the 2 prettiest games I've ever played, along with the next game on this list, and the attention to detail in remastering levels spot for spot in most places is superb. I could spend a long time talking about this game, 25 minutes in fact, so if you want to hear more, go ahead and watch my review of this game. The Majora's Mask to Uncharted 2's Ocarina of Time, Uncharted 4 is a game that I think will be overshadowed by the love of its predecessors for years to come. I was incredibly skeptical of Uncharted 4 going in, fearing that Neil Druckmann's writing style wouldn't do Drake and crew justice in what's to be their final adventure. That we'd get some cheap, dissatisfying ending, or that we'd go into even more ridiculous set pieces than Uncharted 3 had, further loosening the game's direction behind the desire to have memorable moments. But instead, Naughty Dog dialed it back. Set pieces were almost absent, and when they were present, they were much more subdued than, say, fighting on a moving train, an exploding plane, or spending an hour and a half on a pointless boat detour. Rather than make it the moments that we remembered, Naughty Dog refined the experience to a T, perfecting the gameplay and working overtime to challenge these characters in unique ways that didn't involve more explosions, but rather more narrative conflict. Perhaps more importantly, they cleaned up the pacing, which always ended up dragging by the end of the previous trilogy of games. Uncharted 4 runs significantly longer but feels shorter than any of the previous Uncharted games. All of this shifted focus worked, and what we got is arguably the best Uncharted game in the series. Now it's time for some honorable mentions. Oceanhorn came out in 2013 as an iOS game, which is probably the only reason I couldn't put it on this list, even if the console ports just came out in September. Either way, this is a charming little game, a blocky mix between 2D and 3D Zeldas with a sort of isometric viewpoint. The best way I can describe it is the love child of Wind Waker and Link to the Past, leaning more towards Wind Waker's side visually and the Super Nintendo side mechanically. The game doesn't tread much beyond its Zelda inspiration though, with only a couple underutilized gimmicks that it can call its own. However, that doesn't stop it from being a fun, if sometimes uninspired, adventure. Overwatch is in the honorable mentions because if I don't mention it somewhere, one of you is probably going to find and kill me. It's a Blizzard game, of course it's good, you don't really need me to tell you that for you to know it. However, it's not my cup of tea. I haven't been able to really get into a shooter for a long time, and I don't really hang out with a crowd that plays it enough to justify me picking it up. I tried it and it just didn't really click for me, but I know it's a solid game by its own merit. And my game of the year for 2016 is... Don't look at me that way. Tokyo Mirage Sessions is not only my favorite game to come out of 2016, it's also one of the biggest surprises I've ever had come out of a game. I bought the game on a whim. I'm not a huge Shin Megami Tensei person, I don't care for Fire Emblem at all, and J-pop culture is probably last on my list of game topics I'd want to play, and yet this game nailed it for me in every aspect. The story is ridiculous and hammy, but I love it. The characters are all wonderful, the J-pop music is actually kinda catchy, and the combat is some of the most satisfying I've ever experienced in a JRPG. Having all your characters actively interact as you hit the enemy with a weakness and chain together combo attacks called sessions is incredibly addicting, and the game's combat combines both the elemental attacks from Shin Megami Tensei with Fire Emblem's weapon types, and each has their own rock, paper, scissors. This game combines the mechanics of both franchises perfectly into a battle system that would put any Pokemon or Final Fantasy game to shame. The game didn't succeed on its simple narrative though, and it didn't succeed on just the combat either. It succeeded because the whole package sucked me in for hours on end. I found myself accidentally grinding for an hour at a time because I just enjoyed the combat and fighting different types of enemies. I went in and completed each character's side missions right away because I wanted to see them grow and develop as people. I constantly went back and created new weapons or upgraded prestige versions of old weapons in the game's surprisingly deep weapon crafting system. Every time I thought I was done, another layer peeled away, hooking me in that much more. And this was a game I bought because the concept was so hilariously stupid that I figured I had to give it a try. Perhaps low expectations yielded high rewards here, but where Gravity Rush hooked me in for something like 20 hours until I'd 100% of the game, Tokyo Mirage Sessions hooked me in for almost 60 hours straight, and I hadn't even finished the main plot at that point. It's not often that I get this intensely hooked into a game, and when it happens, that game is something special. And that's why Tokyo Mirage Sessions is my personal Game of the Year for 2016. Alright guys, that's it for my top 10 games of 2016. If you have something on your list that's different from mine, let me know in the comments down below. I love learning about new games, if you couldn't tell from this whole game reviewing channel thing. So, let me know. I always love playing new games. Bazinga. On a more serious note, I started this channel back in March, so it's been 9 months or one full baby since the Golden Bolt started, and it's been an amazing, awesome ride. Seriously, these reviews take forever to make. They're a total pain in the ass sometimes, more than you'll probably ever know, but it's always been worth it to be able to interact with you guys and see your opinions on the games, because that's why I do it, is to give you my opinion. And it's been so much fun, and I have a ton of stuff planned in 2017. I have a 3-video collaborative review series that I'm going to be doing with one of my buddies who I met via YouTube, which will be really fun, and I have the single biggest review I will have ever done at some point next year. I don't know when, but if you've been watching from the very beginning, or if you're just starting watching with this video, from the bottom of my heart, genuinely, thank you very much for watching. And as always, stay golden.